Quite frankly, being vulnerable and owning your insecurities is the biggest superpower of all. Yes, I'm an Uber driver. Yes, I failed many, many times. Yes, I was a drug addict. That doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm gonna be one. What's beautiful about life is that dichotomy, right? The bad and the good. Everything that makes us unique is the bad and the good. So I think that's the biggest lesson of them all.
Welcome everyone to the Callum Johnson Show. On today's episode, we have my guy, Diego Vetencourt. Diego, how you doing, man?
Good. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for this.
I know. I'm glad to have you. You know what? I was actually obviously I'm new to this kind of agency game, and you've been killing it for a little while. So I was like, also your story is like, we have to get into your story. Like your story's crazy. So let's start with the agency stuff, and the thing I want to start with, I'm going to read out a tweet, and then I just want to I'll follow up with some questions on it. So this is from Sam Parr, host of My First Million. He built The Hustle, which ultimately got sold to HubSpot. But this was something he tweeted out. So he said, "This summer, I did an experiment with TikTok and Instagram. I posted our chopped up podcast videos twice a day. The results, the Insta went from 2,000 followers to 55,000. TikTok went from 0 to 25,000. But I have a confession. I didn't do it. Diego did." Okay, so we have Diego right here. So tell me, man, where does it start? Like, where did you, obviously I know that you run like a very successful agency now. You guys do like over 100K right now in like MRR. But where did it start? How did you meet Sam? This episode is brought to you by Free Agency. If you want to take your career to the next level, Free Agency is a company that you should check out. They manage and represent talent in the tech industry, and they provide you with a dedicated talent agent to help you find, engage, and win top of market roles that will maximize your earning potential. No more leaving money on the table. Stop job searching alone and start building your dream career today with Free Agency. Anyway, back to the show.
So since the pandemic, I've been, should I go back to the story or like, because it's a long story, so I don't know how
Take us back, man. We want to hear it all.
So since the pandemic, I had a 9 to 5. I was a CMO for a merchant cash advance company in Florida, Miami. And ever since I got that job, I've been basically funneling all of my residual income that wasn't an expense to build theme pages on Instagram. And a theme page is basically a page with repurposed content. I did it for Call of Duty content, Fortnite content. I did it for NFTs, crypto, and ultimately all of them failed. But last summer, after a bunch of failures that we will, if you want, we can go into them. But May 2022, I decided that I wanted to just use the time that I spent on commute, listening to podcasts, grabbing those bits of podcasts that I like. And I met this kid on Fiverr called Danja. Danja, it's my brother and partner at Shortzy right now, but it didn't start it like that. I met him through Fiverr, and I hired him to make me clips on a monthly basis for, I believe his retainer was $600 for 60 videos a month. And I told him like, hey, listen, I really like your job and I would love for you and I to work together. I'm happy to pay you a premium if you and I work on this project. Are you down? And he said like, yeah, fuck yeah. And I offer him $1,000 per month so that he can help me develop that idea. That idea was called Top Business Podcast. It was a Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube and Facebook page where we basically just repurpose content that I heard in the morning and in the afternoon. It was an hour commute. So 1 hour going to the bank, 1 hour to my house. And I just listened to every podcast that I like Lex Friedman, Rogan, My First Million, everything that you can imagine under the sun. So every time that I heard a part that I like, I send it to Danja, and we were trying to iterate on like what's the style, etc. And this was in the middle of like that era where Andrew Tate was like doing a massive short form strategy.
Yeah.
And Danya happened to work with a big YouTuber called Iman Gatsi.
Oh yeah, I know Iman Gatsi. Yeah.
And Danya knew how to create this at scale and with highly intentionality. So the clips were very, very well done. And that started in May. I would say that by July, we had probably 50,000 followers and we were generating around 5 million views across every channel, not only Instagram. I'm talking YouTube, TikTok, but we didn't know how to monetize it, right? Back then, my idea was like, okay, I have a theme page. Let's just sell the ad space. In this scenario, my idea was to sell it to podcasts, but I didn't found anybody. In fact, I remember that we were iterating on ideas and I signed up to be an affiliate for Morning Brew and send them traffic. They paid, I believe, anywhere from $2 to $4 through a platform called Impact. And we tried that for a while, but it was not making real money at the time. I didn't understand the business model, but I was just having success. And in the middle of the summer, we really hit it off. I think August 2022 was our biggest month in terms of reach. I think we were doing like 50 million views a month. What's funny is that a lot of the best performing clips back then were all Sean's and Sam's videos. My first million videos were popping off. They already had an extremely competent team. Back then, I believe the guys from Our Future were running the account, and like my intention wasn't to compete with My First Million, but I noticed that Sam nor Sean had a presence in Instagram or TikTok,
like a personal page, kind of, right?
Yeah. I couldn't find Sean, but I found Sam, and Sam was posting fitness stuff and other type of stuff. I believe he had anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 followers. And I just decided that every day I was going to send him a cold email. Not a cold email, a cold DM from the Instagram account. At that point, we already had 100,000 followers. And every time that I posted a video of him that got millions of views, I would send it to him and send it to him. No reply. Just send it, send it, send it, send it. Until I said like, hey, you're not doing this. Why are you waiting? I would love to do this for you. And he finally replied the DM and basically was very like, he was excited to do it, but he didn't know who I was. It was a theme page after all. You know what I mean? So it was, I didn't have a face. He didn't know who I was. So he asked me, so, okay, I don't trust you. So first of all, make me 10 clips that you think are good. And I just sent him, like, I immediately told Danya, hey, talking to Sampar, which we love, and let's please just make 10 videos. That was, I believe, like 1 p.m. And by 10 p.m., we had the 10 clips ready. Wow. And I sent it to him. Yeah. And he replied really, like, immediately. And he said, like, I'd love this, but I still don't trust you. So he told me, like, who are you? And I just sent him, like, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, which at the time I was nobody. And then he sent me like, okay, send me your social security and your license and even my girl's license. And I sent him all of that information and he gave me the access. And that was August 2022. And by September...
He gave you the access to his account?
Yeah, to his Facebook, to his Instagram, to his TikTok. And we just replicated the same strategy that I was using for Top Business, but exclusively for Sam. So I told Danya, like, hey, man, and by the way, Sam asked me to do it for free, and I agreed to it because I thought that it was better to offer him this and see what happened without any expectations in return, just because of the opportunity that it represented, right? So I told Danya, like, hey, man, let's do this. We have this opportunity. I'll pay you for these clips out of pocket. But let's just provide this to Sam. Danya clipped and did the all the editing, and based on like what we thought was cool, what episode, what part, etc. It was really important for us to just decide what type of content and context we were clipping. linearly or non-linearly. I think that's very important. It's just not a clip. It's just something cool about the story. And nothing. I just started funding it myself on top of Top Business Podcast at the same time. And I was manually posting. And I remember that Sam hated the way that I write. So I bought his course for Copy That.
Yeah.
And slowly started to like integrate it into my workflow. But I clearly remember back then I was posting in the morning and the afternoon, twice a day, while being at the bank.
So you were literally like at the desk, just like...
Yeah, I was doing my work, and in the meantime, I was talking to Sam and Daniel. Like, it was super cool, and I was extremely like motivated for this. And I truly didn't had any expectations other than this is a cool thing to be doing. Like, I was, mind you, like for a little bit of context, I've been listening to Sam Parr and Sean's podcast since 2019, back when they were filming in San Francisco, and I used to do it when I was an Uber driver. So for me, just to have the opportunity to talk to him, even through a DM, I didn't even had his phone number, mind you. So after the relationship developed, by the time it was September, I already had his phone number, but I still haven't talked to this guy. He just gave me feedback on the captions. What did he like? What didn't he like? And we just try to iterate on top of his feedback. But 1 month in, and the account was already like 10,000 more followers added because of Sam, not because of our strategy, but I just implemented the strategy and leveraged the fact that he was a known person in the medium, right? He was just not implementing this strategy back then.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? Here's so I want to get deeper into it, but let's start here and let's actually start with the theme page, Top Business Podcast, right? So the first thing you said is that you guys obviously you took it from like 0 to over 100,000 followers. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, even myself included right now, like I'm trying to build like my Instagram presence. Obviously everyone's talking about like reels and the fact that you can kind of get reach through reels and short form content. What is it? First of all, just tell us like what was the strategy? And then why do you think it worked? Like, why was it so effective in getting you followers? And also, what was even the time frame? Like, to go from 0 to 100,000, how long did that take?
And mind you, I've been doing it for 3 years with no success. Like I told you, I did it with Call of Duty, Fortnite, NFTs, crypto. So I always had this desire of building anonymous brand on Instagram specifically and YouTube. Faceless channels. I paid for a course and ultimately failed. So this wasn't like an overnight success. In terms of like what made it work was, I think, a mixture of the fact that we were repurposing popular content, the fact that we were taking care of the moments that we chose. So for us, the biggest part for us is what moment that we clip. That was a big and huge part of like our intention behind it. It was just not like, oh, let's just edit this. No, it was, what are we telling here? And I think it's a combination of those two and having a very strict cadence. So it was 2 clips a day for every day without a miss, consistency. For the first month, it was flat, no growth. So we didn't care. We kept going and we kept like iterating ideas, etc., tagging people, collaborating with people with nobody care about us. And I think from May 2022, when we started, the growth happened over a period of 3 months. That was our top. Like we hit 150,000 at one point in September, and we were, like I said, making 50 million views a month. And what's funny is that I didn't knew how to monetize it, nor how to do anything on it. Like I just knew how I got there, but I didn't knew how to monetize it. So even to this day, I couldn't figure out a business model around it. And I tried everything. I tried affiliate marketing. I tried outbound strategies, reaching out to influencers, selling them the space, and nothing worked. Or maybe nothing worked because I didn't knew how to execute on it. But for me, it was the perfect social proof to meet Sam. And I think that was way more worth it than anything else.
It was huge credibility, like just to even, I think even if a page DMs you and they have like over 100,000 followers, you're like, oh, okay, like this shit is legit.
Yeah, and by the way, in the past, I iterated with like services that sold you followers, sold you impressions. This time, my goal with Danya was like, hey man, we're not gonna do this other than organic. Like, we're not gonna play with like this growth tactics, group channels where you can comment other channels and like nothing of that. Like, let's just try to do good content and see what happens, and that helped a lot. So it was a mixture of that, like, and actually, like, it was only podcasts that him and I liked. Hormosic conversations. I don't know, everything that was happening in the moment, relevant in that period of time, we just listening to it. I would say everything except Andrew Tate. So, but yeah.
When it comes to, I want to talk about something you said, which is like how important it is. And I think people sometimes undervalue this, like the moments that you're choosing. And so I'm just curious, because when you're doing 2 a day, 7 days a week, that's 14 clips a week, right? So what even, like, take us deeper into the process. Like, what is your mindset when it comes to selecting the moments even? Because there's so many variables, right? Like, it could be like a 30-second clip. It could be a 1-minute clip. It could be like something very emotional and like inspirational. It could be something very like actionable. It could be like funny. It could be like, there's so many different ways you could go. Yeah. How were you guys like even thinking about like which moments we select?
I think for top businesses, each one in particular, now at scale, it varies, right? But at the point, it wasn't about like deciding other than just things that we like. Like, if I heard you or talking with any of your guests and I really like something you or a guest said, I would just remember that time frame, and we will just clean out the noise and create the story based on what we liked about that moment. So back then it was our representation. Like I told you, I was listening to 1.5 hours, 2 hours of podcasts every day, and I was picking those moments myself. And same goes for Sam. Back then, the way that we do it and clip it was based on what we like about My First Million and his way of like telling stories. Manifest Cowboy, Korean barbecue story owner. There's a bunch of moments that for us stick to this day that we personally picked and catered and like took the time to develop ourselves. So it's all about like, at that time, it was all about like our ability to hear something we like and put it in a short form video. It wasn't very methodic at all, but it's truly the magic that helped us grow, I think, especially with Sam. It was a combination of his popularity, his personality, and the fact that we like his content, and we picked the moments that we thought were controversial or useful, or like stories about Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, opinions about Sam Bankman-Fried when he was failing. We were leveraging everything that was happening that was relevant and putting it in his account and at the same time in ours.
Yeah. You know what? I actually like that. I like that way of thinking about it, because even with my accounts, like, we've had certain clips go viral, and it's difficult to engineer virality. Like, it's difficult before the clip even goes out to be like, this is the one that's going to go viral. So like, just thinking about it in terms of which clip, when I just listen to it, like what moment when I listen to it, does it resonate with me? That's kind of a good barometer. Like, it's a good filter to see, like, is it a clip that you should post?
For sure. But I would like to say that it was never about going viral either. So if top businesses teach us anything, was that growth and virality and those vanity metrics didn't matter. It mattered for social proof, but as far as like content creation and clips, for us, the output was more important. So for us to respect the output and the cadence was like huge. So it's because, like you said, you never know what's going to go viral. So you're not picking moments that you think are going to go viral. You're picking moments because you like them, and you're going to stick to it through a long period of time and iterate on those ideas for a long period of time. And if you find something that works, where that's a controversial hook or like a story about an entrepreneur, then you repeat that over because you can double down on what worked in the past. For example, he had a conversation 3 years ago with Gary Vee, and we just found that a lot of those clips were going viral. So we just repurposing over and over again. But we never came to, neither with him or what we were doing with our theme page, we never had that mentality of what is going to go viral. We just were like, okay, we're going to increase his output by twofold, stick to that cadence, never lose a day, and like iterate a bunch on every platform possible. And that was our mentality. And that ultimately, as you said, like he grew from, I believe, 5,000 followers all the way to 55. And we plateau right there. And I couldn't explain you why. We never changed the strategy. Perhaps it's that. But it also, it didn't help the fact that he, I believe like 4th month in, he told me like, hey, Diego, is it okay if I present you to 2 people? And like I said, I told him, and I was very upfront with him, like, hey, we've been working with you for a month. I've been funding this operation myself. I just have a 9 to 5 that pays me at the time, maybe low 6 figures, maybe, because he was very depending on the bonuses that I get of my position. And I was doing this on the side, but I always done things on the side. Like this wasn't a problem. The problem was like, hey, Sam, like I have spent this amount of money so far. I have this partner doing this with you. And he told me like, hey, do you think you're ready if you're cool if I present you to 2 people? And I was like, fuck yeah. That will be awesome. I wasn't even expecting that to be the case. It just happened organically after we interacted a lot. And mind you, again, like up until this point, I have never talked to him. It was just text.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, you know, I want to get deeper into that story. But one more question on the short form content side of things, because obviously short form's all the rage, and it's cool just to hear your perspective on it. If I'm an entrepreneur, if like me, even like I have a podcast, a creator, I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to build like a brand on social, really through like my personality and who I am, in the same way that you've done it for Sam and like countless other clients. And I came to you and I was like, Diego, just give me like, I'm trying to build this brand on Instagram. Give me like a playbook. Like, what should I be doing week over week? Like, I have a podcast. What should I be doing week over week? Should I just be posting reels? How often should I be posting? Like, break it down to me. Like in June 2023, what is the thing that you would do if you wanted to grow to, I don't know, 100,000 followers?
I think really depends on the person and at what stage in life you are. Something that I found incredibly to be true, it's the fact that doesn't matter who you are, if you have social proof, it's easier to do things. So if you're already an accomplished entrepreneur, the strategy that I will use will be different if you're starting out. I think Danny Miranda did an amazing job on this strategy because he's basically increasing his output dramatically. I would say that he clips his podcast for natively Twitter and vertically for all other platforms 5 times, 6 times a day, and leveraging the fact that he has a bunch of guests and collaborating for guests. So for example, if specifically for you, my main focus will be how can I increase the outputs that you're putting out there across every platform agnostically, right? Doesn't matter which platform, just use it as your top of the funnel, because the people that are going to be watching your clips perhaps are not going to listen to your podcast. So it's just an introduction. And afterwards, I would definitely add the PPC element to it, run ads on those, on the best outliers. So if you ask me and my partner, Sam Knight, who we have another agency, we'll talk about it later, but our philosophy is like, we don't know what's going to go viral. So our output is everything, especially starting. How can we increase those outputs as much as we can and establish a cadence which we can iterate on every day without miss? It's very important that you don't miss a day, especially on YouTube. Like YouTube respects the cadence and the flow more than any other platform. Each of one has its own tricks, and perhaps I'm very biased on a lot of those tricks, and those tricks change. everybody will tell you the algorithm this, the algorithm that. Nobody knows shit, right? And so I think what matters is just extreme output, especially if you're starting. And if you are an entrepreneur that is trying to get into content, my philosophy, it's creating frameworks around authority, around social proof, around the sale itself. So what are you selling? Around free value about your knowledge, and each framework iterate as much as you can on different settings. And by framework, I mean, like, if you're an entrepreneur that owns a business, do a framework where you're talking with an employee about the day-to-day. Do a framework where you're talking in front of the camera and tell your story. Do a framework where you're in another type of setting talking about something that makes you insecure or vulnerable to relate to people. And do a framework where you literally say why people should trust you, so authority base, and repeat those every day. I'm very keen towards output before doubling down on quality. So I think every big and huge media character right now, it's Hormozzi, Gary Vee, you name it, like, they're all focused on increasing those outputs across every platform. That's the main, that will be the main goal.
Okay, no, that's valuable. Okay, cool. I want to get there's one thing I want to ask you actually about the Sam thing, and it's funny because I've experienced you doing it as well, which is like, I would call it like you have like a relentless DM strategy. I don't even know what to call it. Like, you even spoke about it. You just kept DMing. When you're I'm curious, like, when you're DMing Sam, like, what is even your mindset? Like, are you like, okay, he's gonna respond like any moment now? Like, what are you even saying in the DMs? Are you literally just sending him the videos? And the reason I ask is because I think there's a lot of people out there that like want to start agencies, or they want to build businesses, or maybe they even want to do a podcast and get like their favorite entrepreneur on, and like they'll get brave and they'll send like one email and then they won't get a response and then they'll just give up. So I'm just curious to get the mindset of someone who just kept coming at it.
I do it till this day with everybody. So I would say that I would attribute that to the bank.
To the bank?
Yeah. I started there as an SDR.
What's an SDR? Oh,
sales development representative. Okay. So I work at this place called Uplift Capital. I ended up being there as CMO, but I started as an SDR pre-pandemic, like 2 months before the pandemic. And what they make you do is basically they receive thousands of leads per day inbound, and the SDR will have to call them, email, and text them every day for 14 days each lead. And when you do that at scale, your KPIs where you have to have 200 calls, 200 emails, 200 texts by the end of the day. And that relentlessness comes from that place, because I didn't have that before. But when you're selling money through a phone call to a random stranger, I think you lose all fear. The objections doesn't matter. So when I was texting Sam, I was telling him like, "You motherfucker, please answer. Let's fuck. Stop. Listen to me. Read me." And it was like the most outrageous things you can think of. Everything was very like.
For context though, he does say that though. He says that,
yeah, exactly. But I tend to be very like irreverent and like, I don't know, like inappropriate sometimes. Even here, I feel like that. But that's just my nature. And my expectation was like for him to reply. I wasn't expecting him to other than like reply and say, I think I was just looking for his validation. Like, oh, this is dope. I wasn't expecting him to tell me like to do it for him. But as soon as I had the reply and I was there in the Instagram when he replied, I just told him, okay, let me do it for you. Yeah. For free, by the way. I'll do it for you for free.
Yeah.
And he said like, okay, let's do it. And that's how it started.
Yeah. You know what I think is actually a really good skill? And I know someone that we both know, which is Eamon. Obviously, we had him on a few episodes ago. And I remember talking to Eamon about sales. This wasn't on the episode, outside of the episode. And one of the things we were saying is like how important the follow-up is. But it's important to do the follow-up in a way that's not annoying. A lot of people, I feel like people go to two extremes. They either go like they just don't follow up, or they follow up, but it's almost like they're nagging the person. And so I'm curious from your standpoint, like, how do you think about it when you're following up with someone where it's like, it's still kind of like fun and you're keeping yourself like top of mind for them, but you're not like annoying them? Like, how do you think about that?
I think it depends on what my intention is. If my intention is selling them something, then the follow-up becomes very like methodic and like boring. Sales cycles vary differently between each vertical. In the bank, it was demanded of me to do the follow-up every single day for 14 days until I get a reply, whether it's a yes or a no. And my intention was selling them money. When it comes to my agency, for example, I don't follow up consistently after a sales call or an introduction call. Perhaps I follow up 1 week in to every 2 weeks, but my follow-ups is way more milder. When it comes to DMs of people that are interested in talking, I'm relentless because I know that I just want to offer them value. So in my scenario, I wasn't expecting anything from Sam in return. I just wanted to give him value. And in that particular scenario, it was short form and content. So I wasn't scared or I wasn't embarrassed about it because I know deep down inside of me that I could help him. So I was not gonna be apologetic about it.
Yeah, you know, I like that way of thinking, which is like I think I hear a lot, which is like everyone talks about like the sales and like the outreach and everything, but you also have to make sure that when they do respond, you have something like of value to give. And like making sure that and I think that's why it's important to have like a skill. Like before you were ever doing outreach or even started building an agency, you had been posting content for what you said 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Like that is 3 years of reps, like putting that in. And I think a lot of the times, because we're impatient, we try and short circuit that process and just be like, oh yeah, I watched like some guy's YouTube video on how to build a short form content agency, and now I'm ready to just start hitting up people. It's like learn the craft as well. I think it's important.
And intentionality. Like I wasn't intending to create a short form agency. I hate that word, by the way. But at the time, like my intentionality was like, I admire this person. I want to be close to this person. How can I make that happen? At that time, it was content, but my skills were not particularly in the content game. I just happened to have this, as you said, 3 years experience, but I wasn't as successful. Quite honestly, my biggest school was the bank. Being a CMO of a bank, making, I think we scaled from 2 million a month to 10 million a month in a 3-year period, managing 70 people, handling a 500 grand budget through multi-funnel marketing. That was a really good school. So I knew that I was prepared for something, but I didn't know what was that.
Yeah.
So I never intended to create a short form agency, and that happened way later in the year. Like my life went from 0 to 100 very fast because I don't know if you want to go there, but like everything started to develop once those 4th month in were in. And mind you, I was like literally grabbing all of my disposable income into Sam and Top Business. I didn't had money or like save money. I think I told you I have probably 3 defaults by that point from other businesses that I run in the past. So I wasn't a wealthy person, or I had a bunch of money on my savings account.
Yeah.
I just knew that this was a cool opportunity, and I was going all in on it.
Okay, so I want to take this story deeper because this is really good stuff. So Sam comes to you after you've been working with him for a couple of months, and he comes to you with 2 other potential clients that he wants you to speak with. Where does it go from there? And what was the point where it kind of clicked in your mind? You're like, oh, this isn't just me like making videos anymore. I can actually make this into like a fully fledged agency that I'm running with Sam. Like when did that start to happen?
Okay, that was October 2022. And Danja had the stripe on Czech Republic. Danja is a Russian kid, 19, escaped Russia that year to not being drafted in February. And he just happened to pop up on Fiverr because he needed a job and he lived in Czech Republic. And we hit it off. He's a friend. He's somebody that I admire. And it's very like talented, not only in the content game, but on a bunch of things, processes, system, etc. And he was learning a lot from the Iman Gatz experience as well. So by that point, we were working already 4th month in with Sam. I think I was out of pocket like a few $1,000s already. And that's when Sam decided to introduce me to Ankur Nagpal and Jesse Puji. And I told Daniel, like, hey man, we have this opportunity to serve these clients. Do you want to go 50-50? And we actually do the same and start learning. And we didn't even have a website. So we just spin it up fast. I just opened car.co, created a landing page, open up the Calendly, send it to Ankur, send it to Jesse, and we just like jump in and try to like get on the call and understand what they needed. And back then I was like, the short form video agency didn't like, the term wasn't like popular that much, or like we just knew that we just want to make the content, but they didn't have much content. So we had to like script it for them, tell them what to do, tell them what to say. And that's how we started. Like October 2022, we processed the first 2 payments through Danja Stripe in Czech Republic, because we didn't have a business in the States.
Yeah.
Nor did I expect it to grow as fast as it did. So back then it was all Danja and me. And Ankur and Jesse were extremely patient and helpful for me. I ultimately bombed for Jesse Puji. I wasn't communicative enough. I was learning. He needed certain things that I wasn't able to provide, or at the time I didn't know how to provide them. And ultimately, I think 2 months in, he decided to move forward. I refunded him all the money, and he helped me a lot to understand what is needed. But I think I wasn't ready yet for the scale. I was still very focused on the 9 to 5. But Ankur, on the other hand, was like, we kill it. Like, not kill it in the vanity metrics, but kill it in the way that he helped me develop a very different way of looking at this. And I think the feedback from both of them helped Sam trust me. Again, I haven't spoke to this guy yet, and it's been already 6 months. So by December, I was with my girlfriend in a Christmas trip, and I get a call from Sam, and he asked me like, hey man, I've heard a lot of good things about you for the first time, so I'm nervous. And he's calling me, right? I'm finally talking to my idol. And told me like, hey man, I heard good things about you. You've handled, but this time we already onboarded Neville Medora, which is somebody that I love and admire. And we actually help him a lot as well. So we already had those 3 social proof, 1 bomb, 2 work. And the one that bomb, we stay in good terms. I refunded him the money because I knew that I didn't provide enough value. And it was also Jesse fucking Puji. So like somebody that I would never thought I could speak to even on a camera, right? Yeah. But so he called me in this trip and he tells me, Diego, are you ready to scale? Do you think I can start like speaking about you and sending you clients? And he did, like, and he told me like, get me this percentage, just get me a cut of every client that you get. Like, we created like his UTM link, and just that's when he popped up the tweet. I told him I was ready. I wasn't.
That's hilarious. Okay, cool. So when he sends the tweet, like, take me back to the moment. Like, I want to understand what this was like from your perspective. So he sends the tweet. Is it literally like the next day your calendar's just full, like, or is it taking some time? Like, what's even happening in your world?
Dude, it was New Year's Eve. I was with my family. And like I said, I told you I was ready. I'm never going to say no to something. I'm learning now to say no to opportunities. But back then I was like, yeah, yes, fuck it. Send it. He didn't knew I wasn't ready. He didn't knew I didn't have anybody. Immediately he put up that tweet. By next day, yeah, my calendar for whole January was full from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., even sometimes 12 a.m. because my calendar was just set up on the basic form and I just put every day possible. So all January was back. And I told Daniel like, hey man, like, start recruiting people. You handle the editing side of things. I'll handle sales. And I figured I was gonna hire somebody, but I didn't. Like I just took all the calls myself because I needed to learn how to pitch this, how to talk to people, how to understand what they need, how to understand if they're a good fit or not. I wasn't ready to train an account executive to handle those calls for me, especially when there's people that it's recommended by Sam. So it was 1st of January all the way to mid of February, call back to back every day. And I don't know, quite honestly, I was still working at the bank. I work at the bank till like a month ago. So I did this all while at the office, like figuring out, like hiding in the bathroom sometimes, like going into an office where I was not going to be bothered, and just told my assistant, hey, handle this task. And I just like was present in like the meetings while I did this. And I didn't told anybody. And by the end of February, we had, I believe, 25 clients, 30 clients at one point. High churn, of course, but 30 clients by the end of all of this madness, and about 10 editors. We found that the biggest problem of scaling a short form agency back then, especially if the people had content, was finding a clipper. That's what we were referred to. So the person that it was going to be responsible for clipping. Finding editors was easy to scale. Finding sales guy was easy to scale. Finding clippers was not. And it was one of the reasons back then why we churned so hard. And also because I was pitching to everybody and saying yes to everybody. And there's a lot of people that didn't have content or just want to be famous like Sam. And I just said yes to everybody. By the end of February, I had 30 clients. And then a few weeks in, I had 20. So it wasn't all roses. But imagine going from 0 to 100. I had to create the LLC on January. Till this point, I was still processing payments from the Czech Republic Stripe. So I had to create the LLC, the Stripe, everything, the Mercury account, just to process all of this new onboarding and just try and picture this. By the end, we have 30 clients supposedly paying up to 90 grand, like between 90 and let's say 85 in 1 month out of having nothing. And then the Stripe haven't even cleared yet. And I had to pay 10 editors their expenses, which I had to pay from a credit card. I didn't tell Sam this. Like, I didn't want him to think I'm a pussy. You know what I mean? Like, I just roll with it.
Damn, that is a crazy story. Okay, you know what? I'm curious. This is gonna be gold for anyone that's like trying to do an agency right now. Take me into those sales calls, because I think about that. Like, if you have a bunch of sales calls in a day, and obviously you're also like building up the skill set, like what, like, did you have like a framework of like how you were handling the sales call, or you were kind of just like jumping on, like finding what their problem was? And then what was even your offer at the time? Because I always hear people talking about that on like Money Twitter, on the agency world. Is like, how do I come up with the offer? What do I sell people? Do I just have like one offer that I offer to everyone? Do I have like a custom offer that I change based on who I'm talking to? Like, what were you even doing at that point?
I think that was one of my problems, that I knew that I had two offers. On one end, it was like done for you content, where I repurpose content that they already have and it existed already. And on the other hand, I was doing done with you content, but I wasn't ready for that one. And a lot of the people that we onboarded in the beginning needed done with you content, which means basically creating the scripts, helping them with the setup, creating the content from scratch, understanding their voice. And that's something that ultimately didn't work for Shortzy. Shortzy is just a repurposing machine where I'm arbitraging an army of Venezuelans, Philippines, and really cool people that we're able to give them salaries at scale in order to repurpose content like yours, for example, at a cheaper cost. And that's what Shortzy became today, just a repurposing content machine. But at the time, I was not able to understand that. I was shooting everywhere and saying yes to everything and failing, by the way. I missed a lot of calls. I ghosted a lot of people. I was scared, mind you, but at the same time, I was happy with some of them. So, and I think it was also the fact that I didn't want Sam to think that I was not up for the challenge. But in terms of the sales call, like I told you, I had a big team. I had a 40 people sales team in Uplift where I helped script all the customer journey. So I understood sales at a different level. which help. But I think ultimately I didn't have a framework per se. I just listen to what the people have to say, what they need, and understand if I can help them or not. It's about listening for about 20 minutes. Tell me everything you need, everything you want. How can I help you? That was my framework for every call. And if it works, hey, this is what we do. This is the cost. Does it work? Yes? No? Okay, I'll send you an email. That's it. Close there, right there in the call, over and over again for 12 hours. My dad was visiting back then. He took me to work and take me to work because I couldn't drive, because in the drive from the bank and home, I was selling on the car.
Oh, that is an insane story, bro. Okay. Okay, so I'm curious because you have a second agency now, right?
I do. So Shortzy, in February, okay, we had up to 30, down to 20, and then slowly, for the people that we were killing it, like they started to refer us client. I think like the basis of my success is referral fees and like offering that as a tool, especially because we had so much, like we really had really high margins. I was arbitraging college friends from Venezuela, from Argentina, from like all of these countries where they are underpaid. We just pay them better salaries, but still at a fraction of a cost of what cost me here in America. So all my VAs, all my social media managers, all my project managers, everything from Shortzy was extremely low cost. It still hurt when I didn't have the money to pay them, but it was manageable at least. So
just quickly, actually, before you get on to the second agency, because I think a lot of the times when it comes to like the agency conversation, we talk about sales, we talk about getting clients, all those things, which is great because that's the revenue for your business. But on the back end, you have like this whole operation, all of these VAs, the clippers, the editors. So like, what was it like even managing that process, and like what have you learned just through even like building teams in the back end?
Fulfillment, it's a bitch. Like fulfillment, up until this day, I still fuck up constantly. And it's one of the reasons why we truly refund people if we ultimately fail. Because I don't want to work with anybody that don't want to work with me. And if they think that we didn't provide value, I'm happy returning that value to them. That was a very hard value that Danya and I created. The second thing is having good partners. Whatever I did in my life, it's about having a team that you can trust and delegate and win together. It's important to share the incentive together. So having Danya, which again, it's at the time, I think she's 20 now, at the time 19, helping me with the whole operation. Like he was incredibly sharp and useful for all of this. So he set up the system for the editing process. I tried to set up the system for the sales, and we both delegated the operation because ultimately I was a face with the clients. Like we onboarded into Slack, and all the conversation happens through me at the time. I didn't want anybody there so that they don't think like we're like low quality offer. But it's just having somebody to talk every day about the operation, whether that's Danya or whether that's Sam on my new agency, and having people that you can trust and rely on, and that helped a lot. So I would say that, but all of that experience from the bank helped me just set up the proper hiring processes and systems. Also for content, it's important to test. So Danja created this really long process of testing editors and clippers out so that we can filter all the applicants. And the applicants we got through Discord channels, basically. All the Discord channels of like big content media and like whatever money Twitter is out there. We just poach talent from there. And my friend from Venezuela, the college, like a lot of people that I met in college that are highly educated, but live in a communist country, right? Like they're underpaid. Picture a master college student, bilingual, working for a consulting company in Venezuela, are making $800 a month. That person, it's an extremely savvy salesman. He's just underpaid.
Yeah. Okay, I'm curious. So, like, if you were to take Shortzy at its height, you don't even have to give like an exact number. Maybe we can just do an estimate. And you were to say like what the what at its height, what was the largest like monthly revenue that you guys were doing?
Yeah, 167 at the highest point. I had to return 20K of that ultimately. Again, for because of fulfillment. I failed a lot of people.
Mm.
And again, a lot of that, Sam pushed the first wave, and then through fulfillment. And I'll tell you this, I was telling this to my associate Sam this morning. I have had so many referrals of people that I failed because they respected me as an individual and as a professional because of the way that we handle things after failing. So many people that I returned the money. I'll tell you, like, I met this incredible entrepreneur called Max Sertan in December. I was still uploading his manually the clips. I uploaded myself in one of the clips because you don't understand. We post manually across every platform, across every client. So I have a bunch of social media managers that post manually because using third-party software doesn't work. So it's the most like hard part of the operation. It's the distribution itself. It's not even the editing or anything else. It's just having the consistency to post. So back then I was doing it myself, and I posted this clip of me in one of his videos. We were 2 days in, and I posted myself kind of like half naked on the bed. And the video went viral, and I wake up the next day with a message saying like, what the fuck happened? And he just laughed, and he treated me with so much respect. And I said, listen, this is the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me. Here's my money. I apologize. Like, I don't think we're a good fit. I'm sorry. No, let's try it. Ultimately, we failed. And that person, 1 month in, referred me to this guy that we both know that it's a billionaire reverse aging his age. And that came through somebody that I failed and bombed horrible. One thing I learned through this whole process this year, it's like, fail graciously, fail with honor and like accountability. And like, if somebody's not happy, ask for feedback, ask to understand why, but ultimately return the money and move forward. And I would say that those 20 first clients then referred me to 2 clients. So not at one point we were at 60, 62 clients at the height, which was that. And then that was, I would say, April. And then I started to realize that I wasn't happy with fulfillment. I always thought that money was what I needed and wanted, but just offering this commoditized offer of repurposing content, I think for me wasn't enough. Like I realized that, it's funny how people measure you by how much money you make. Because if I told you like, hey, I'm making a five figures a month or 4 figures a month, I'm making 10 grand a month. It's way different if I tell you like my best month was 167. For some reason, that gives me social proof. I'm the same individual, the same capable individual. However, the social proof of the money is more important than my work, which is something that I hate about the industry. I rather much focus on work. And what I realized with Shortzy is that I wasn't proud of things that happened, like not with Danja. Danja, it's again, my partner, my brother, but things that happen in fulfillment. At scale, it's hard to operate with 30 editors, 60 clients at some point. It's a headache. And quite frankly, I think for me, it took a toll because I was still at the bank for some reason. I was still scared to leave my security. And it took a toll on me. And I started to like go to therapy, go to this like group meetings of business owners in Miami, sharing my insecurities, my fears. And I met Sam Knight in one of this. And I reached out to him. I told him like, hey man, I'm scared of losing this opportunity. I'm scared of that my fulfillment isn't enough. I'm scared of failing people. Scared. And then what I realized is that I was just focused on money and scaling this operation, but I wasn't focused on the results that I got to people. I was killing it for some people, but I was bombing for others. And I wasn't proud of the work. I got a confession to make. I don't know how to edit videos. So when somebody told me like, hey, I hate this, I can see why they hate it. I can see how to change it conceptually, tell feedback to my editors, but I cannot go into Premiere and edit myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that realization was very important for me because I realized that I lack vision and I lack purpose, and it was all about money and scaling. And ultimately, I realized that all my life in 32 years, I've been searching for money when in reality, it wasn't about the money at all. It was about feeling fulfilled about your work. I think you do this very graciously, where you actually enjoy these conversations yourself. I wasn't enjoying the work that I was doing. I'm still proud of the work for some clients. I still love my editors and the people that I work with. I respect them a lot, but that's when I decided, hey, let me talk to this entrepreneur, and we hit it off. And Sam Knight, had the same problems with short form. We were titled a short form agency when we never decided that that was going to be what we wanted to do. And that's when we decided to create Artifacts.
You know what? I think that is, it's such an interesting and it's such an important conversation. And I know even for me right now, you're like, when you're starting a business, all you're thinking about is revenue. How do I get the clients through the door? How do I, and I've even had it in the last couple of months where like you're changing your offer. You're like, okay, this client kind of wants this, so I'm just going to give him this. And there's not even, obviously you care about what you fulfill and like what you deliver, but it's all about just getting the money through the door. And it's just interesting to hear from someone who's reached 167,000 a month in revenue.
Not anymore, by the way.
Yeah.
I lost.
At its height, right?
Yeah.
To reach that number and then realize like it's great to have that money, but it's not something that is personally fulfilling me. I'm curious, was there a moment in that journey? Like, what was the moment when you really felt that? Like, was it almost like an accumulation of just different feelings? Or was there a moment where you were like, okay, like this just isn't, like the revenue's nice, but this just isn't it?
There's three things. On one end, I was being pushed to increase that revenue, to increase the referral fees by a bunch of referrals. So there were people that were very incentivized to grow and push me to grow because they wanted better fees. Like I said, I offer 20% referral fee, lifetime value. So it's an ongoing subscription basically through me, especially because when you're at 80% margin, you're able to play with those numbers. So my marketing funnel was strictly referral. Didn't do PPC, didn't have a social media presence because I was too insecure to have one. And I thought that my story was very corny and I was insecure. So on one end, I had people pushing me to just grow because they wanted more money. On the other end, I had a client that did, from the moment we onboarded him in January till April, he did $15 million out of social media. And I just made 10 grand from his contract. But it wasn't his fault. I never asked for more, but I realized that there was something wrong because if I'm able to generate that amount of traffic, and mind you, this person is a unique individual. We both know him, but he didn't have a social media presence. He didn't have this funnel set up. So he generated through sales, affiliate links, and a bunch of other methods that came all through social media. And that realization made me think like, okay, there's people that I'm bombing and there's people that are killing with my offer. But my input, it's not leverage. I have a stick retainer that in order to scale, I have to onboard more people, hire more people, train more people, manage more people. What if I just do inputs that are performative and that are based on my skin in the game with those individuals in a way that we both enjoy the upside through the measure of my work? And that was a big realization. And that was the moment that I decided. And the third one was the fact that I met this incredible entrepreneur that showed me like a bunch of tools that were coming to the market. And I realized like, oh, Shortzy is going to get commoditized, whether by AI or whether by competition. No matter what I do, I knew that Shortzy, like if we didn't pivot or change, it was going to last perhaps 1 year or 2 years, but it wasn't going to be a 10-year vision. And that's when I met Sam Knight and we decided to create Artifacts. What if we do content top to bottom, merge all of our skills in marketing, in sales, in PPC, in copywriting, in newsletter, in content creation, in film and production? And what if we integrate ourselves into operations to help them grow and grow with them in a performative manner? And that was way more interesting because each relationship have way more upside, but because we have skin in the game. And at the time, we had the opportunity to meet this incredible guy called Blaine Bolus, which is also a client for Shortzy, for which I also bombed. For him and Ramon Berrios, they had a podcast called DTC Podcast. And they told me like, hey, Diego, we're launching this new AI software. Is it okay if we give you 30% of revenue and for everything you bring online and to help us build our brand instead of like a retainer because we're starting? And that relationship was the beginning of Artifacts.
That was your first client?
Yes. I talked to Sam and told him like, hey man, there's this incredible entrepreneurs that are trusting us, but they're not going to pay us. They're going to give us a percentage of their sales. So it's up to us to make it happen. And that was the inception of Artifact Labs.
Okay, you know what? Let me cue this up. So we obviously we've spoken before we jumped on the episode. An Artifact, it's pretty new, right? Like you've been doing it for a couple months.
It's funny, when we were flying here to meet you, we look at the Stripe account and the Mercury account. We opened it the 3rd of May.
Okay.
The inception came in April.
Yeah.
But the official LLC registration and Stripe account happened in May 3rd.
Okay. So I guess by that, you've been open for about a month, right?
Yeah, a month.
Basically a month. Okay. So you have this experience with Shortzy. You build this huge agency in like, to build it to that scale pretty quick, right? You onboard all of these people, all of these clients, this huge team. You go at its peak, it's at 167,000 in MRR. You realize that there's a better way to do it. And you're actioning that with Artifact. 1 month in, you guys are at 24,000
in
MRR. I'm curious, if you had to really boil it down, what have been like kind of the key things? Where has your focus been to get to that 24K number in 1 month? Like what is behind that?
Performative basis. But it's a combination of many things. And mind you, I want to clarify something. The success of Shortzy, it's completely dependent on my relationship with Sampar. So there is no Shortzy success without the blessing of Sampar because of his reputation and because of his distribution. So it was a matter of luck, much luck, that he replied and trusted me. And the compound effect of failing and knowing a lot of my marketing for so many years. But it wasn't an overnight success. It went from 0 to 100 very fast, but it's due to the fact that he trusted me, and a lot of these people trusted me and believe in me. And it's important that I make that distinction. It wasn't a solo thing to do at all. It's not a solo business. It was right now it's a 40 people operation business, and I can't do it without them. For Artifacts, I think the biggest, I was talking to Sam about this because it's like, man, when I was 25, when I got to the States when I was 28, I dreamed about making 10 grand a month. Like that was the holy grail in my mind. And I always thought that that's what I wanted. And you read online and you read like I bought so many courses of how to make your first 10K online, how to make, I would say that the biggest, it's right now it's cheating because I already have some social proof. I have connections, I have networks, I have people that trust me. So it was easy to just pitch them on something new and have that trust. But if I would tell you the biggest way to win fast and win big, it will be to do it in a performative manner for free. I used to run a Google Ads performative agency that ultimately failed, but we scaled that business to 30 grand a month by getting leads to a bank and getting paid for every lead that we got. So they didn't pay me up front. It's, in my mind, it was very important. Like, hey, for you, this is an investment. It's an investment from me into your business. And because of that, I'm going to have a skin in the game with you, and you're going to give me an upside. So it's very reliant on trust and attribution. And there's ways you can attribute that performative basis. There's people that fuck you and like don't honor that. And it's very important that there's transparency in those processes. But if you had zero right now, do an email marketing campaign for a D2C brand and get a cut. Do content for free for somebody, and for every lead you close. Be an SDR for free for somebody and close for every close. Like when you share the incentive, it changes everything. When the incentive is not one-sided, it's not pay me, I'm an agency, I know everything. I work with so many agencies that charge 10K, 20K, 5K. They promise you the world. They put you in this 12-month contracts. They don't get you the results that they promise they will. That's way different when somebody tells you, don't pay me anything, Callum, but for every client that I bring to your agency, just give me a percentage and we win together. That changes the whole dynamic. And that's I wouldn't say that's the value proposition of Artifacts. We're at a point where it's half and half right now because of a social proof and because our operation incurs in a lot of cost. But if you were a young guy right now, $0, work for free and get a percentage of whatever you get. Let your work speak for yourself. Don't promise shit and get money out of it. Make the people win and they share those wins with you. That's a very American value that I didn't know in Latin America, that I love about this country. Winners like Sam, like you, and like everybody that I've met that I really respect, they share the upside.
You know what? I think the best businesses, what they do really well is they align incentives. So I'm not going to go deep into it, but even in economics, there's this thing called the principal agent problem, where basically the principal, who are like the owners, their incentives are different from the agents, who are like the employees who do the work. And theoretically, like this causes, and actually in practice, it causes a lot of problems when the incentives aren't aligned. The beautiful thing about what you just spoke about is that the incentives are perfectly aligned, which is when I win, you win. I think the reason why, and if I was thinking about it and I was going to put myself in that position, one of the reasons you wouldn't want to do that is I feel like your confidence level that you can actually deliver, and you can actually deliver revenue, because sometimes, and you see even a lot with social media, just because you get views doesn't necessarily mean you're bringing in money, right? Yeah. Just because your videos are going viral doesn't mean that your client is generating thousands of dollars because millions of people watched it.
I told you the top business had 50 million views at the peak. We didn't make $1. I think I make perhaps $80 from the Morning Brew affiliate because I didn't know what I was doing. So yes, it comes down to having the skills and the confidence to provide that value. But it's also that I've had so many failures and I've had so many experiences that got me here that I'm confident that I'm able to do that. And if I don't, then you lose nothing. I had a really good mentor in the bank. His name is Eric Kigathi. He's a CTO of Uplift Capital. We had so many ventures that failed. We had a crypto fund. We had we can get into that later, but we had so many things that failed in the crypto world. The reason all of this exists is because in May 2022, he sat me down and he told me very honestly, like, just in game theory, like as you mentioned, stop playing zero-sum games. Stop playing zero-sum games. You're obsessed with this concept that you're going to bet and win big. But you don't realize that your value is that I give you $2 and you make me 4 or 6 or 10 through your marketing skills. But you have been obsessed with crypto for the past 5 years. For what? To be rich? To what end? There's no winning when you're extracting value from the market. There's winning when you provide value to us at the bank, when you provide value to your clients and anywhere what that you go do. And that was the pivotal moment of my life, because I realized that all my life I've been playing zero-sum games for myself, individualistically, or because of the way that I was raised, or like I don't know. I lack the knowledge of like, hey, what if we win together? And that changed everything in my life.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. Okay, you know what? Before I want to get into your story and even like the coming to America as well, and like setting up a life here and reaching some of your goals. But before we do, you spoke about the fact, even with like the podcast theme page, you were getting a ton of views, millions of views, but not much like revenue, not much money attached to it. I'm curious, like you even mentioned that you've had clients that they were paid you 10K over the lifetime of the contract, but they were generating millions in revenue from the audiences and what you were able to build. What was the switch? Like, what was it that you were doing differently so that it wasn't just views, it was like views and audience plus being able to monetize and revenue? Like, if you were going to just say, like, what were some of the things that you were doing to achieve that, what would you say?
Intentionality. And not knowing what I know now, right? Lack of skills. For top business, I think if I were to do it again, I would put a sales team outbound selling people on the ad space on the account, which I didn't. That was the big play there. Like, hey, we are making this amount of views. You own this podcast. You want views and channels and plays. I'll sell you my spot for $500 and do that every day. I didn't. I thought I was gonna do affiliate. Thought I was gonna do a bunch of things. I ended up putting Shortzy on the Top Business Podcast page, and it worked. I got probably like 5 to 10 clients, so it gave me the money in the end. But I was already doing great by the time that happened. For this individual person that makes so much money, I think there's twofold there. Intentionality behind the video content. So all of his videos are making people take an action. In this case, it's go to my page and sign up to my newsletter, or there's this product that I'm using. There's everything relates to his life. He lives what he sells, and he makes you want to know more, and he gets you there through the content. So for him, it's also owning the audience. So the big play there, it's newsletter. He also have a very high ticket offer, up on the 7 figures. So it's a multitude of things, but all the content that he creates is to make you want to take an action, whether that's getting a pill, or whether that's signing up for a newsletter, or whether that's calling them and getting the high ticket. But it's making the content highly intentional, on the comments and the actions and the tools that you have at your disposal being very intentional, like outbound people through the DMs, interact with people in the comments, sell on the comments, sell on the pinned comments on YouTube Shorts, make people take an action. Like it's not like link in bio. No, it's like, go here and buy this pill. Go here and sign up my newsletter because you learn this and this and that. Like, it's not some vague thing. It's very high intention.
You know what's actually really interesting, and I'll add on to what you said, because one of the people that I've been reading since I started my agency was Russell Brunson. Obviously, he does ClickFunnels, and he kind of like, it's interesting. Once you start to read his work, you start to understand funnels, and there's like different ways of getting someone to be first aware of what you do and your product to actually selling them. And so just listening to you, what strikes me is that like you need to understand what each part of the content is doing in terms of the funnel. So for example, like with the short form is incredible, like top of funnel, right? Like you're getting a ton of attention, a ton of views. It seems like with the problem with your original page was there wasn't any of the kind of lower funnel mechanics to actually convert that top of funnel into money.
Yeah.
When you're talking about your client who's making like millions, he has a bunch of ways to convert them, right? Because he's taking this top of funnel, they're signing up to the newsletter, then he's putting them into his high ticket offer, probably through the newsletter. Like he has a really efficient way of converting that huge amount of views he's getting at the top into money at the bottom.
Yeah, and it's frameworks, like I told you before. It's iterating on those frameworks. Not every video it's about selling. Not every video is about signing up to the newsletter. There's all the videos where it's value. There's all the videos where it's vulnerability. But it's a mixture of everything and high output and cadence.
You know what? Okay, I want to switch gears and I want to talk about. You mentioned that you came to America at 28, right?
Yeah.
Just tell me that story. Like, what made you want to come here? Like, how did it begin?
Vulnerably or like half-assed?
Vulnerably, man. Give it to us.
I grew up in Venezuela. Venezuela, it was one of the richest countries in Latin America, and I grew up in a very, what would you call, a wealthy society there. So I wasn't born in a poor society at all. We grew up with bilingual education. I grew up very spoiled, and I had the opportunity to go to college to Buenos Aires because, but by that point, the communist government was already in place. So we were already starting to see and suffer from that that problem. I went to Argentina when I was 18. The communist government pays for college if you go to another communist country, and they give you they pay you the tuition plus the residency. And I just spend it all. I became a DJ and I partied my ass off and ended up dropping out of college and just ended up using that money stupidly and didn't learn anything. When I was like 25 or so, I called my uncle, which lived here, and I told him like, hey man, I really, really feel bad here. Like, I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. I'm in a very bad spot with drugs, depression, etc. And I knew I wasn't. I took a mushroom trip, the first time in my life with a girl that I liked back then, and that made me realize that I was not living to my full potential, and I was avoiding the reality through drugs and video games because I knew that I wasn't living to the life that I wanted. So that trip made me decide like, okay, I'm gonna go to Venezuela for a while and figure out what I'm gonna do, and maybe end up in the United States with this uncle that is a extremely savvy entrepreneur. The problem was that in Venezuela I got detained because there was a middle of a civil war happening, and I was just in a vacation back then. I wasn't living in Venezuela. I was just spending some time there with my dad, and we got detained. And I not leveraged, that's a bad word, but I had a choice to make. I either go to the States and apply for asylum after that, what happened. And mind you, that's not something that only happened to me. That happened to thousands of Venezuelans through that period. As I said, the communist government started killing people, and there was a civil war for like 9 months in Caracas, the capital. So this was not an isolated thing that happened only to me. This happened to thousands of Venezuelans, and the big migration started to happen. Like people were walking to Colombia, to Argentina, leaving the Venezuela. I happened to have some money, family money, and they helped me just grab my ticket and come to the States. And that's how I got here and applied for asylum. The asylum process, it's very slow. So since the moment I got here, I was 26 actually, not 28, 26. Since the moment I got here, I finally got my working permit and social like 3 years in. Wow. So for 3 years, I worked with his uncle, which was a very savvy entrepreneur, and I learned a lot from him. He had an Airbnb business. He used to own, I think, 300 units in Miami. So I wasn't alone for a while. But then he over leveraged and ended up losing everything. And at that point, I was saving money through cryptocurrency and Ethereum. This was already 2017, December 2017. And this was at the peak of the bull run. And I told him like, hey man, I made some money here. Why don't we do something here, right? Why don't we? And I trusted him. He didn't trust me and my ability because I was just an employee and like didn't have any skill. So for me to tell him like, let's do something was something new. And he spin up a process where we can create the GPUs for Ethereum, and he teach me how to do it. And he didn't have like a lot of like social connections, so I did in Venezuela and Argentina, and I just started pitching investors from those communist countries that couldn't host the mining equipment there because the government will seize it. So I pitched them, hey, I'll make you your machine and I'll host it here in Miami. Does that sound okay? And we grew that to like 500 grand a year. But ultimately, we didn't. Our problem was that we always thought that the price of Ethereum was going to stay. We're financially literate people. Never read anything up until that point. This was just pure luck and having somebody that was savvy enough to make this happen.
Yeah.
We rented a warehouse in Medley, Florida. We started making the machines every day. I started to pitch it, make the machines, and we grew. And then when we found ourselves, the price of the Ethereum crashed. The electrical bill was higher than the money that was coming in. So we failed. And this uncle decided to not tell the investors anything and just sold all the machines and led me with that. And that was a very hard and very tedious process for me because a lot of these investors were family, friends, people that trusted me. And I didn't have the ability to tell them, hey, my uncle, who I love, just told everything. I don't know what to do. And I called my dad and I told him like, Dad, like, what the fuck do I do? Well, I have somebody that you can be there, like, and he may help you. I still didn't have Social Security. So I went to this person and he told me like, hey, I have this Uber account. Why don't you buy a car with what you have left and start doing Uber with my account? And through that process, I finally got the social and I could like do things on my own. But I was so depressed that I just dedicated to do Uber on my own this was all 2019. I was already 29 at that point. Failed at cryptocurrency. And just drive Uber all day, thought that was my life, and listen to a bunch of podcasts. And that's, I always tell Sam that my life changed that moment because that's when I started to get really educated about life and like open up my world to things that I've never heard before, things that are not common in Latin America. Listening to these entrepreneurs talk about business in not a superficial or egotistical way, but sharing ideas like you and I do normally, right? Like about business, about ideas, about problems. I started to realize that there's a whole world of possibilities that I wasn't aware of. And I just listen to podcasts every day. I have like a 4.8 star rating because I didn't speak with anybody. I just put my AirPods in like, hi, and just drive all day and listen to, I had periods because the problem is when you're driving so much, you run out of content.
Yeah.
You cannot listen to people. I listened to Ben Wilson, How to Take Over the World, My First Million, Rogan. There wasn't a Hormozy podcast back then. Wish I was, but a bunch of books, Warren Buffett books, marketing books. And that just gave me so much knowledge. And this owner of this bank got in a ride with me and offered me a job. And that's how it changed.
That's crazy. That's crazy. There's one thing I learned, and I actually wrote this on my Twitter a few days ago, which is sometimes when you're going through your hardest moments, and it can be hard in terms of like, you're just putting in effort in and not getting a certain result. It could be what you were talking about with depression, or you're just, it's just a tough moment. It's also the point in your life where like you're the most open to new things. And I think the reason why is because a lot of the times it's like being that when you're kind of unhappy with what your reality is and what your life is in a certain moment, you're open-minded. You're willing to learn certain things. And it's interesting for me because I remember one experience very vividly, and I've been listening to podcasts since I was like 15, so 10 years. And But I remember during my first job, it was the only time I've gotten like kind of close to having depression. Like I don't think I've ever been depressed, but I was like, that was probably the closest that I got. And I remember I took like a vacation from work, like a week off. I go to Atlanta, and this is during COVID lockdown, but I was like, okay, I just need to get out of New Jersey and go somewhere different. It's like, Atlanta, let's go. So I go to Atlanta, and I remember I'm in the gym, and I'm listening to Tim Ferriss talk with Naval Ravikant.
Oh shit.
And it's weird because I must have, at this point, I probably listened to hundreds, and actually, you know what? At this point, I probably listened to thousands of podcast episodes, because I like basically study this shit even for my own podcast, and like I've been listening to it for 10 years. But I remember that episode so vividly, and I remembered Naval. It's really where I learned about like kind of what leverage is, the way that he kind of thinks about even a career, like the way that you build businesses where you should focus your time, the fact that you need to disassociate like money from like your time. And basically, you know, when you're working a job, you're basically sacrificing your time in exchange for money, and you want to distance yourself from that. And it's funny because I think progression and improvement in life, it comes in multiple moments. It comes in, day out. It's not just one moment. But if I had to look at a piece of content that has completely changed my mindset and guided everything afterwards, right? So the second I listened to that, the week after I quit my job, a few months afterwards, I got a job at like a startup, which was actually like a way better fit. A year after that, I start this podcast. Now, 18 months into this podcast, we're like building something with leverage through media. I'm like starting a business, right? Everything changed from that moment. And so I'm curious, when you're driving that Uber and you're driving around 12 hours a day and you've got your headphones in and the customer's in the back and you're listening to Ben Wilson, you're listening to My First Million, you're listening to Lex Friedman, Rogan. Was there an episode, was there a quote, was there a line, was there a story that just sticks in your mind that you're like, okay, this really inspired me? Like this changed things. Like it's something that you just vividly remember.
I would say that the biggest learning, it's not a quote itself. It's how vulnerable these people are, and how the Latin America paradigm and the culture that I grew up with, it's a culture of hiding your weaknesses. It's a culture where you don't share what scares you, or like the fact that you don't have money. My mom, who I love, and it's one of my biggest supporters, kept saying like, don't tell anybody you're doing Uber, right? It was like frowned upon in the society that I grew up. I remember having some friends in Miami that didn't speak with me because I was driving Uber, like that was beneath them. And I realized throughout my life, I was trying to be something that I wasn't. That period in Argentina, I was spending money because of girls, because I was showing off. And I lied and say like, yeah, I worked this, I worked that. No, I was a dropout fuck up that hide through drugs and party and girls. And that experience of the podcast and the Uber, what taught me was that being vulnerable through your weaknesses and strengths is the most powerful thing. This story that I'm telling you, it empowers me, and it gives me confidence that I'm able to accomplish anything that I want in life, because I'm not ashamed of who I am. And for many, many years, I hide my insecurities. I hide my weaknesses. I hide everything that I was ashamed of. And that journey, what allowed me to do is like, all of these people are incredibly vulnerable about their failures and their weaknesses. And even though they had all of them, they're still successful, which is something that in Latin America, you don't see enough. You don't see enough people showing weakness. People don't talk about money because it's taboo. And if you do, it's to show off. It's not about sharing the journey of entrepreneurship. It's about those zero-sum games that I was talking about. Communism in Venezuela is the result of many, many factors. but the biggest one, it's the lack of values in society through individualism and then like this facade of superficial um, ideas that are relevant to their culture, right? And it saddens me because up until this point, people don't see that as a weakness. They see that as a strength. And quite frankly, being vulnerable and owning your insecurities is the biggest superpower of all. It was a moment of saying, yes, I'm an Uber driver. Yes, I failed many, many times. Yes, I was a drug addict. That doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm going to be one. Tomorrow I'll be me. And this is just, like you said, those journeys of depressions, right? Or like being down. What's beautiful about life is that dichotomy, right? Like the bad and the good. Everything that makes us unique is the bad and the good. So I think that's the biggest lesson of them all. Even to this day, I think like being vulnerable, it's what has opened me so many doors and I wasn't before at all. I think every drug addict is trying to hide their insecurities through some way or another. To fight that, you gotta be an open book because nobody can own you then. Nobody can tell you anything you did bad. Nobody from my past can say, hey, Diego was this fucking manic people in Argentina. Yes, who cares? Right? Who give a fuck? I'm me.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's such a good point. And I was just thinking as you were speaking, because I've never thought about it that way, but it is a superpower, right? Because being vulnerable, sharing what your true experience is, the good and the bad. And I think in this age of social media, we're very used to people only showing the good, only showing my highlight moments, my vacation moments, when my business makes its first million, when my podcast is top 10 ranked. We only show the good things. But people don't relate with that, really. People relate with the mixture, with the dichotomy, like you said, with the dark moments and where you started. And so I thought to myself as you were speaking, I was like, what stops? We're all aware of this, right? All of our favorite heroes, the entrepreneurs we look up to, the athletes that we look up to, celebrities, actors. We're always aware of like where they started, right? We're always aware of, I even think back to like that Jeff Bezos picture when Amazon was like first starting. I don't know if you've seen this. And he's like in like a rundown office. The desk that he's working at is like literally like a door to a room. Like they would just take the doors off and like use it as tables.
Really?
Yeah. He has like a poster on the wall and it's literally just he's written out like Amazon.com. It's a pretty, I'll send it to you. It's a pretty famous picture. But the point is that everyone that we look to, we're aware of their dark moments. We're aware of their vulnerabilities, of where they started, of their humble beginnings, and we're inspired by it. But even still, I think there's so many people, and I've definitely felt it, which is like, you don't want to show that, right? You don't want people to know that, I don't know, maybe you had to move back in with your parents, or you had to take that job that you didn't, it doesn't really, it's not like got a bunch of status and glitz about it. It's kind of like a humble job. And I think the reason why is like, we obviously care what others think. And we don't want to feel shame. We don't want to feel ostracized. And so I think when you're in that feeling, one of the most difficult things you can do is open up. Is be like, you know what? People may look down on it, but I'm going to share it anyway. And so I'm curious for you, as someone that comes, like you said, from a very prideful society, a very prideful culture. What were those initial moments? Like, how did you start to open up, to share your vulnerabilities, to share some of the weaknesses?
I gotta say two things here. There's many things, but fuck that. You're so right. I don't know why people are so afraid to be unapologetic about their insecurities, right? And by the way, even to this day, I still fuck up with my ego and you and I both have an acquaintance that I respect very much. So, and I recently fuck up with him because I became emotional and irrational out of my ego. He said something and I reacted in a very poor way. So this is not something that it's an ongoing battle, right? About the ego and the mind. And it's not easy to fight. I'm learning how to do meditation, but my manic and ADD ass, it's having a hard time with it. I do 10 things per day, so I don't know. But back to that question, there's two things. So one, it's being by myself. I think all my life I've had support. And that Uber moment was just me and my own. And then in that process, I didn't have anybody here. Don't not have friends, don't have anybody. And I met this girl, my girl right now, who was going through the same process. It's another refugee from Venezuela. And she was also having problems, money problems, financial problems. What's funny is that I didn't even have the headspace. I've always been like a person that wants to go out with girls, have girlfriends, whatever. But back then I didn't even feel worth it of being with somebody. So it didn't even cross my mind. And I clearly remember that I went out and I met her and she invited me. And in my mind, I was like, what the fuck? What? Like, I live with a Vietnamese in a room for $300 per month. I don't have my house. I rent this car. I do Uber. Why would she care who I am? And looking backwards, I haven't said this publicly, but there's a part of me that felt very supported. We fell in love, but aside from that, it was the fact of finding somebody that didn't measure our affection through anything other than who we were. And that was extremely important for me. I think I haven't spoken about it ever, but I think like if I look back to my girl, and it's not to give her the responsibility of everything that happened, but it was extremely peaceful to know that you can be with somebody that's not in it for anything else other than your personality and who you are in the whole spectrum. Then I met her parents and I was like, oh man, I don't want to be a fucking Uber driver. I don't want to meet her parents and tell them like, hey, I drive Uber for a living. Because I know also that my life, I'm still to this day, I know that my life, there's more in the horizon. I'm always thinking about the future. I want more about life. And I don't know if it's money or not, or a vision or not, but I just know that I'm always looking forward and I'm excited about what's to come. And back then I knew it as well. Like, as much as I say that I lose hope, I knew life was preparing something more for me, but that did help. Having somebody for the first time in my life that wasn't with me for this or that or anything. That was important. And the second one was like, once you hit rock bottom, what else is there to lose, right? Who gives a fuck? Like, it's a superpower in and of itself as well. Like, there's only upside from here. And to be quite frank, this is a phrase that I always say. Every problem in America is a first world problem. While that was happening, Caracas went out of light. There was no electricity grid for 1 month. People that didn't have water, people didn't have food. At least I have a car and some food. Like, my problems are not even that big. So in the big spectrum of life, even our worst fears are not as bad as some people have it in life. And that helps. Especially being Venezuelan. This is not something that I live on my own. This is something that my people live with every single day for a while. Maybe not now. A lot has changed since then. But everybody was suffering through this. So it helped knowing that I'm not the only Venezuelan struggling right now. There's a bunch of other Venezuelans here in Miami. I lived 2 days in a Walmart parking lot because I couldn't pay rent. And in the same parking lot, there were 3 other Venezuelans in the same parking lot, living through the same shit. And that helped a lot. We ate arepas, which is like a Venezuelan dish, every morning. And that helped a lot.
Yeah. No, it's an inspiring story, man. And I think it's interesting what you mentioned about, is your girlfriend or fiance?
It's don't say that yet.
Oh, okay. My bad.
I haven't proposed.
Yeah. But you're
but I will. She doesn't know. So maybe when this is out, she'll know.
That'll be how we announce it.
That will be fucking awesome.
Oh, that's a good. Okay. So I think it's such a good point because I think a lot of the conversation on the internet, especially when it comes to like dating and relationships, and I see a lot of this advice towards men that before you can get the girl that you want, you have to become a certain person first. You need to become part of the top 1% or the top 0.1%.
Oh, God.
And I think what you say is so important, which is like, why would you even want that? Like, why would you even, to get the wife that you want, to get the life partner that you want, first you need to earn a certain dollar amount. Like, why wouldn't you want it to be someone that just loves you for who you are, irrespective of the money that's in your bank account? And I think that's something for people to keep in mind. And also for me as well, which is like, don't get so caught up chasing all of these things and constantly on this like hamster wheel, like this treadmill of always looking for the next thing, that you think that you can only be happy when. I can only be confident when I earn this amount, when I have this type of girl, when this is my house, when this is the sort of car that I drive. And I think that's really what you speak to, which is like just having that perspective and not always, I don't know, there's beauty in the struggle and going through those moments and the development and just everything that comes with it. And there's a lot of opportunity there. And it's funny even doing this podcast because I interview so many successful people and I sit across from them the same way that we're sitting across from each other. And as I'm speaking to them, I'm also reading their body language. I'm looking at their facial expressions. And 99%, I might even say 100% of the time, the moments that they speak the most fondly about, they speak with the most emotion, that mean the most to them, are the early moments. The moments before they had any of the riches, any of the wealth, any of their current lifestyle. The moments when they were building it. Those are the meaningful moments. And I think that, especially for me, I'm always saying this as a reminder to myself, that is something to remember, which is like, don't get so caught up chasing this next thing that you forget the present moment that you're in right now.
Yeah, enjoy the game, right? Enjoy the game of entrepreneurship. But yeah, the top 1%, man, or all of this bullshit online, just be yourself. But you have to pretend to be somebody you're not. I don't know. I hate that type of mentality. Even in sales call, I'm like this. Even with like very corporate conversations, I'm like this. Even in like the war, like no matter the situation I'm in, I'm always going to be Diego. I'm not going to act of like certain ways or do some certain things. I think like I always try to be authentic of who I am and say what's on my mind. We were in this sales call with a public company the other day for the new artifacts, which we just closed. We're here in New York because of that. And I said like, hey, listen, your content fucking sucks. It's true. It sucks. I can't sit here and tell you that you're doing a good job. It sucks. Like, and then they were saying like, don't say that. It's their baby. Well, fuck it. If it's a baby, they should care. It's not coming out of critique. It's coming from like a place of honesty. That's my opinion. For them, maybe it doesn't suck. And that's fine as well. Maybe I'm wrong. And a lot of the content that I put out there, it sucks as well. But this must be great for you because you must learn so much from people. I would say that there's I don't know. I enjoy everything about the game. I enjoy the bad, the good. Every morning I wake up with problems. I enjoy those too. I just love America, dude. Like, I think America is the greatest place to live in the world. And for me, it's just a blessing that I'm able to be sitting down here with you, talking to you. Every day is fun. Every conversation is fun. I'll say this. Lately, it's more about having cool conversations with people and working with people that I actually like than to force things. I'll never say yes for a paycheck to anybody anymore if I don't like them as a human being. I'm not going to work with anybody just for their money. That's for sure. I hate transactional relationships. If any relationship that I have right now, it's mostly going to be about like an end goal, a vision. And that's what excited me out of Artifacts, quite frankly. The fact that it's no longer about the money, and then coincidentally the money comes.
Yeah.
It's about building a media company that have meaning and like creating strategies and solving problems with people that you like. That's all I care about.
Okay, here's where I want to end. It's funny because I remember the conversation we had with Eamon, and he asked me this question. You're 32 right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm 25, and I remember he said to me, he said, Callum, when you're 30, if I transported the 30-year-old Callum into this room, and he was going to tell something to you now, sitting here at 25, what would you want him to tell you? And I want to pose that same question to you. If I was to take Diego, the 40-year-old Diego, and I was to transport him into this room, standing right here, and he was going to have a conversation with you, what do you hope? What do you, what would be your vision? What would you want him to tell you?
Fuck, I love Amen. I think he's one of the sharpest entrepreneurs I've ever met in my life. That's such a good question. There's two faults. I would say that the Diego right now would tell the younger Diego, dude, everything's going to be all right. I think I needed the reassurance that I was not a fuck up. The drug addict back then in Argentina needed some reassurance that everything was going to be all right because I just felt so lonely. Because your environment helps have a big role. The problem in Latin America, and sorry to repeat this, is that you don't believe it's possible. You just accept realities as is. There's no light? Okay, fuck it, next day. There's no ATM working? Okay, I'll just figure it out. There's no meat in the market? Well, I'll fucking eat something else. Like my dad left Venezuela because one day he went to the supermarket, and mind you, this is a wealthy person with an inheritance living in Caracas because he didn't want to lose his fucking status quo. He went to the supermarket, they sold him some meat. Fucking meat was dog, man. So the Diego to the past will say that. I would say that the Diego from 40 to now, I wish he told me, don't let your ego get to your head. Don't let success change who you are. I'm struggling with that a little bit right now. Those emotional spurs, the reactions, it's getting to me. Money gets to your head in ways that you don't know. And even at this level, which is not what I want to be yet, I want more out of life, but with purpose. I'm scared that I lose myself in that process, and I start losing that authenticity, and the ego just gets to you. And I'm dabbling with that right now. Like I told you, I've been in this emotional roller coaster lately where I'm like manically overpowered and feel like irrational optimistic, and then I have like these moments of like shame and like and it through the work itself as well. Like reality will always find a way to slap you back, right? So if I'm ever 40, I wish to come back and said, don't lose don't lose yourself in the process. Don't let your ego get to your head.
Beautiful, man. That's a wrap, bro. I loved it. That was a great one. That's a great one. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. We're having fire conversations every week on the podcast. Before we end the episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Free Agency. What if I told you there is a good chance you're leaving money on the table in your career? It would kind of annoy you a bit, right? Well, Free Agency aims to stop that. They represent and manage talent in the tech industry. Here's how they do it. First, they provide you with a dedicated talent agent. Think about this as your career quarterback. They understand you and your career goals. Based on that understanding, they bring you suitable interviews at top firms. You focus on smashing the interview, and together with their network, research, negotiation expertise, they will make sure you get a top of market salary. Stop job searching alone and start building your dream career today with Free Agency.